Hello, Marcia Grubb here from Clark County Genealogical Society. As often happens in genealogy research, one person's family story often offers clues to another person's search. Today we have a story, one of my family stories, so we hope you like it. You'll give us a like and follow along as new stories come along by pushing the subscribe button and maybe the bell that'll alert you when we post new stories. My ancestors, many of them, came from Martha's Vineyard. It's an island that's located on the southeastern coast of Massachusetts. If you've ever looked at a map, you'll see exactly why this story is so integral to other events in American history. Part of my family story in Martha's Vineyard is of the dozen or so families named as founders on Martha's Vineyard. 6 are in my family tree. Incorporated by 1668, Martha's Vineyard settlers were likely farmers or mariners. It's an island in the Atlantic Ocean, for heaven's sakes. Makes sense, doesn't it? It was also located on the sea route to New York City from England, and thus benefited the islanders from trading with the English merchants and the military and whoever came past the island. The English merchants also benefited greatly by trading with the Americans. This is all great, but it wasn't all easy peasy. The treacherous waters around Martha's Vineyard and also Nantucket Island made sailing very tricky. So in the early 18th century, skilled marine pilots became essential to the successful and ever-increasing trade between England and its American colony, us. My ancestor, James Shaw, 1631-1783, was my 5th great-grandfather, and he was a marine pilot from Edgartown. But by the late 1760s, ideas and benefits for seeking independence from unfair English practices and, of course, George III, the king, were often voiced. And this certainly impacted the livelihood, especially of Martha's Vineyard, because ships stopped there all the time, not only to provision, but to trade, to pick up marine pilots to get through the treacherous water and into Long Island Sound. So by 1773, after the notorious Boston Tea Party, men were called to make tough decisions. Even at that time, there were still islanders who were reluctant to take up arms against the British because, after all, the livelihood was dependent on a lot of trade from the British comings and goings. My ancestor, James Shaw, became second lieutenant in Captain Benjamin Smith's Seacoast Defense Station on Martha's Vineyard. There's a couple of great sources you can look to if you might have ancestors that this story may sound familiar to you. Number one is A Journal of Occurrences Along the Rebel Coast by Frederick Lawrence Jr. Another is the listing of Martha's Vineyard soldiers and sailors in the War of Revolution. It's 17 volumes, and it was published by Wright and Potter. From our family history, it was believed that Second Lieutenant Shaw was lost at sea. Although later I found he's listed as a prisoner in one of the British ship hulks that were moored in Wallaboot Bay, south of Manhattan, during the British occupation of New York City. Well, you know, like everybody, I saw and read all our American history. Our American Revolution is always big in our history books, but it didn't really occur to me that New York City was occupied by a rather, well, he was considered pretty awful even by the British. So the entire city was occupied by the British under the commander of not a very nice man. So one of the books I found that is really terrific about giving you background, called American Prisoners of the Revolution by Dansky Dandridge, but it also specifically lists numerous ancestors and people who were involved. He also talks about the prison ship martyrs. These ships were hulks, wrecked British ships that were rammed into the sand in Wallaboot Bay, south of Manhattan. The prisoners were left to rot. I mean, it's a huge story. It's moving. We didn't really hear about it in our American history books. I know I didn't. But I have visited the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument, which is in Fort Greene Park, Brooklyn, New York. It's a moving memorial. It too has an interesting story when you get there. And you can find out a great deal more information and the list of more than 11,000 men who were incarcerated there during the course of the American Revolution. In my search on James Shaw, he's a really interesting ancestor. He's qualified as a DAR patriot. But I also found more information on him because, of course, he is a New Englander. His family connections were early. I believe he had ancestors dating from the Mayflower era. And so the New England Historic and Genealogical Society is another great source on their website. And also through one of their premier authors, Robert Charles Anderson, two numerous volume texts, The Great Migration, printed in 2001, as well as The Great Migration Begin, printed in 1995. So of my family story, if there are any clues about the American Revolution and New England, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, I hope that you'll find a clue or two that will, where there's places where you can go to find out more information. Thanks. Don't forget to like us. See you next time.